Another Grammys, another year where rock music stays irrelevant in mainstream pop culture. I love Grammy season because it's like the only time during the year that the entire rock community comes together to hate the Grammys. Like at every other point during the year, we're all infighting between, subgenres, which band is really metal, which band is really fifth wave emo. But during, this time specifically, we all come together to defend rock music. It's kind of beautiful. I loved all the comments about Metallica just automatically winning another Grammy because that's the only rock band that most people can name. Look, I have nothing against Gojira, the Stones, St. Vincent, or the Beatles. I personally feel we as a society collectively moved on pretty quick from getting a brand new Beatles song in 2023. I mean, we got a new Beatles song. And I heard the new Stones album is actually pretty good, but look at this list. I mean, we need new modern bands to at least be nominated. Side note, Saviors by Green Day is the best Green Day album in years. Side note number 2, shout out to Chappell Roan for asking for healthcare in her speech. That was pretty awesome. I know a lot of people wanted Knocked Loose and Poppy to win for Suffocate, and that kind of proves my earlier point. There is like this actual groundswell in the rock community pulling for two modern bands. Like, even if you don't like Knocked Loose or Poppy, if you're a fan of rock music, you at least know who they are. But let's take it a step further, not just them winning a Grammy. Imagine if Knocked Loose and Poppy performed Suffocate at the Grammys. I mean, how long has it been since a rock band, period, that isn't involved with Dave Grohl actually performed on one of these award shows? Like, we saw that reaction from all the boomers and all the crazy people about Knocked Loose and Poppy on Kimmel or Fallon, whichever one of those shows it was. Imagine if they had a performance at the Grammys. The internet would explode. It just blows my mind that the Grammys doesn't book any rock bands. But fine, the Grammys is booked by a bunch of old people who aren't hip and aren't cool. But what about the VMAs and MTV? That's the cool, hip place for cool, hip, new, weird, underground bands to perform. That's what I thought. Why aren't we getting cool new music at the VMAs? Look, I know these award shows are just 3-hour-long commercials for labels and artists, and it's all about ratings and ad revenue that they can get from commercials and sponsorships. I understand that. I'm just trying to put good vibes and my hope out there in the world. Like, imagine if Turnstile performed at the Grammys when it was their moment a few years ago. And let's keep going. I mean, in like the mid and late 2010s, the entire scene was talking about Touche Amore. Why couldn't Touche Amore perform on one of these shows? And I know what you're saying. You're saying, Michael, all of the music that you're talking about is too hard. It's too intense. It's too loud for a casual audience. Well, fine. If we look into the 2010s, how do we not have a band like The Story So Far or Neck Deep performing at the VMAs? You're telling me The Story So Far and Neck Deep wouldn't resonate with the young audience that the VMAs is for? Of course they would. We had Blink-182 on those shows in the early 2000s all the time. See, now I'm actually getting mad because, okay, you're these big corporations, a lot of people in suits around a really long conference table. You're like, we can't take the chance on any new artists that don't have any brand recognition. Well, fine. Fall Out Boy, Paramore, Blink-182, the All-American Rejects, Yellow Card, I don't know, all of these. My Chemical Romance. Can you imagine My Chemical Romance performing at the VMAs or the Grammys? The internet would explode. Emo nostalgia is everywhere right now. If My Chemical Romance performed at the Grammys and or VMAs, it would be a huge moment. Rise Against is putting out a new album. Sum 41 just played their last show. You're telling me we couldn't get Sum 41, a band that every casual fan of rock music knows, on the Grammys or VMAs? I mean, Linkin Park is back. Look, I know a lot of people have different opinions on Linkin Park and the new album and all that, but everybody knows who Linkin Park is. Your mom knows who Linkin Park is. You're telling me they couldn't perform on the Grammys? Look, I don't want to talk about money, but the truth is this is all about money, and these big corporations are too dumb to even realize that they can make money off promoting new rock music. Demi Lovato, Olivia Rodrigo, Machine Gun Kelly, Avril Lavigne all released major label pop-punk albums in the last few years. They all did well. Rock music nostalgia, emo nostalgia is literally at an all-time high right now. I mean, a band like My Chemical Romance is making more money than they've ever made. That's crazy when you think about it. When We Were Young was a success. Emo nights are all over the country. The Warped Tour is back. Hello, the Warped Tour is back, and it sold out 2 out of the 3 dates before a single band was announced. I mean, that's crazy. And at least the Warped Tour, from what I've seen so far, I know the lineup isn't complete, but they're adding younger and modern bands mixed in with all of the nostalgic bands from the 90s or early 2000s. Like, you can't tell me that rock music isn't kind of having a moment right now that it hasn't had in, I don't know, 10 or so years. And I think it was like the Alt Press Awards or something where Neck Deep performed and they did kind of like a melody of pop punk songs and stuff like that. And everybody was pretty receptive to that. Like, even something like that would be awesome even if we're not talking about modern bands, which we should be, if we're just talking about this big wave of nostalgia, especially for the emo and kind of pop punk scene. How cool would it be to see like all of those bands performing, you know, like melodies or at least shorter versions of their hits, whether it's like on the Grammys or on the VMAs. They did, like, was it the Grammys or whatever award show did like that really cool kind of melody of like the different generations of hip hop a few years ago. Like something like that would be kind of cool. I don't think there's like a specific anniversary for when emo started or when pop punk started, but just because all of these bands are so popular again, it would be the perfect time to do something like that. You know, again, all the bands I talked about, your Paramores, My Chemical Romances, All American Rejects, Fall Out Boys, Panic at the Disco, all of these bands that people, you know, that are in every single playlist for emo nostalgia or pop punk nostalgia. And again, like I said, with Warped Tour, when we were young, all of these things are so immensely popular. Doing some kind of, you know, melody, like melody kind of performance would be pretty cool, because it would be the first time that a lot of the casual audience, they would all say one of two things. They would just be like, wow, I haven't heard this song in 20 years, or, oh my God, this was the, you know, everyone was singing this song when I was in high school, because they have all of these memories and nostalgic memories, especially tied to something like emo and pop punk, because it's all, you know, about relationships, love, and growing up, and all the good stuff like that. But even something like that, I'm just trying to think of ideas here that make sense, because I know these big corporations need like a reason for all of this. It can't just be for the good of the scene. And I know I talked about My Chemical Romance earlier and how they're more popular and more profitable than they've ever been, which in and of itself is a crazy thing to say. Blink-182 is back. Like, what about Blink-182? And even putting Blink-182 on, like, the Grammys, for example. Like, no one would even think twice. They'd be like, oh, that's kind of, like, Blink-182. Wow, I haven't thought about them in years, since, like, high school. All the small things. Hey, I miss you. I know that song. Like, it would be that a little bit, but it would be so much more different than if it was, like, Knocked Loose and poppy, right? Because the casual audience would be like, what the is going on? Well, Blink-182, nobody would even like bat an eye. And at least Blink-182, you know, I know they talk about like young bands in interviews all the time, and at least they're helping up like the scene as well. But Blink has a new album out, and again, it's like Blink-182. Pick any, if you don't want to, you know, specifically focus on like new modern bands, pick any one of these giant nostalgic rock acts that are doing so much great business now and put them on your award show. Like, it makes literally all the sense in the world. Thanks for listening to my rant. Please like, subscribe, comment, all the fun stuff. Thanks for watching.